Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Coffee with Carl. If you guys have been around the channel, thanks for coming back. I very much appreciate your support. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Hopefully you get something out of this. That's the only reason I do these videos. So today we are on our third out of our 4 video series of Evoto. And specifically today, I'm going to be talking about my top 5 tools in Evoto that we're using to fire up and automate our volume business. Check it out. All right, guys. So as I mentioned, today we are going to talk about my top 5 tools that we use in Evoto. Now, guys, I don't want to diminish Evoto to just 5 tools. Again, to be completely honest, this platform is so packed full of amazing tools that it would be hard to, nail this down in a 10 to 15 minute video. So, like I said, definitely go through Evoto. If you have questions about some of the other tools and stuff that you can use in this, definitely let me know. I'm happy to make other videos on this, but for today's purposes, we're going to talk about the top 5 tools that we use for my company to expedite our automations. So the first tool we're going to use is our shadows. This is one of the biggest questions that I get about Evoto is how are we adding in these realistic shadows? So I want to dive into this just a little deeper than what I've talked about in the past. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and extract this image. As you can see, it's already extracted. Now, the thing I like to do is I actually like to pop on a white background just so I can see these shadows just a little bit better. So then over here on the right-hand side, under my background or backdrop changer, we're going to go ahead and scroll down. And as you can see, we've got our shadows right here, so add shadow. We've got a couple different options. So we've got our soft shadow, which is going to give us kind of that laid down shadow. We've got our hard shadow, same thing, right? Just, it's changing the settings down here, and we have full functionality of this. And then we've got just our traditional drop shadow. So what we're really wanting is that laid down shadow to tie them into our background. But when we're on hard shadow, you can see this does not match up. So this is the part where I think people get a little hung up on this. And there's a very, very simple way to fix this. So what we're going to do, I personally like soft shadow. I think it looks a little more realistic. Again, it just depends on what your background is and what kind of effect you're looking for. But here's the magic. Right here is this little pen tool. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And then you're going to notice that it gives me this left and this right to be able to adjust these shadows however I need to on both sides of the shadows. So all I'm going to do, we use a foot placement mat. So our kids are really, really consistent at the shoot as to whether they're on this angle, just the opposite angle, or flat to us. So what I do is I cheat this shadow up just slightly past that back foot so you can see it pop off the heel. And then I kind of do the same with this one. So I just pop it up just so it's past the heel. So when I write this into a preset, no matter what angle they're on, it kind of just fades off that heel. Now, yes, I totally understand, grounding shadows and stuff like that, but I can build that into my template to make that consistent. So this really helps give that drop-off shadow look that's laid down. And now I have full functionality here. So I can move this horizontally. I can, move it up and down vertically as a whole. I can create the distance, that I want it to be. And then I can also increase or decrease the angle. So I can actually like lay this down even further if I need to. And then, adjust. So I can really, really fine tune this to exactly how I want it to be. And again, I personally like doing this on white, so that way I can see exactly what I'm looking at before I write this into my preset. So I'm gonna say this looks good, right? So it's popping right off that heel, and then I'm gonna hit OK. So now I can come back in here, I can change my blur, I can make it softer, I can increase the blur range. So I have full functionality of all of this here. I can decrease the opacity. I can even change the blend mode if I want. So depending on your backdrop, if you had a darker backdrop or lighter backdrop, it might be beneficial to increase or decrease that or change up that blend mode. So now what I'm going to do is just come back to that transparency, because you can see now it's really hard to work with this on that transparent background, right? So that's, again, that's why I usually play with this on white. Now the other option to this is I can also retain the shadows. Now, depending on, how this was shot, I have some images where retaining that shadow is amazing. This one's pretty good. So it does give me that connection shadow right there. And again, I can go in and I can fine tune this. So I can increase the size. I can manually tune this in by masking it, right? I can, create the size of my brush, the softness of my brush, increase or decrease the flow, and change the opacity. So I have full functionality of that retained shadows. Now, again, I do have some shadows, just because we are using that matte, that don't turn out as good as others. And so I'm still playing with that on my setup. But again, if you're doing this on a gym floor, or we actually did this for our dancers, and it worked out really, really well with the retained shadows. So that, in a nutshell, is kind of how we're doing our shadows. And yeah, I mean, that's really it for the shadows, guys. It's way more simple than I think people are making it out to be. So I think, again, the magic here is clicking on this little pen tool and getting that full functionality with the anchors on each side of the shadow. All right, guys. So the next thing I want to show you guys, the next tool, is here in the clothes and accessories adjustment. And as you guys know, I am a huge fan of this de-wrinkle. So you can see the de-wrinkle here. It just does such a really, really good job. But honestly, that's not even what I'm going to talk about today. But I do want to put that in as we'll tie this into our second favorite tool, because I'd be lying if I didn't tell you I love that de-wrinkle. So, but there are two new features in Evoto that blew me away. And that is this deep blemish clothing and the clothing edge smoothing. Guys, these two are game changers. So one thing I want to show you, so the deep blemish clothing, this is really good for stray hairs or little strings, or check this out. Look at the stitching, right? So the little stitching here in the clothes. When I increase this deep blemish, all of that stitching blends in. It is absolute. Look at that, guys. That is absolutely incredible without taking away from the actual seam, right? but it just cleans it up. And it's so subtle. I mean, most people wouldn't notice that, but you can definitely see it makes a difference, right? And so when you're getting into, nitpicky stuff, and we're using this for volume, so we're kicking that up, and again, it's getting rid of little things like that. And it just makes a difference. Now, what makes even more of a difference, and guys, when I first tried this, it absolutely blew me away, right? So this girl is very, very fit. And you can see just because of the angle she's at, she's got some, just little, I hate to even say rolls because there's such a negative connotation to rolls, right? But there's little rolls in her jersey and just little kinks and turns and pinches and things like that. But check this out. When I slide this clothing edge adjustment, look at that, guys, right? Again, it doesn't deteriorate the photo and make it so smooth that it just looks fake, but it gets rid of those big, like rolls in the uniform, and so it just smooths that out. And zooming out so you guys can see this, I mean, look at the difference between the original photo and when I add that edge smoothing in, right? I mean, it's just absolutely incredible. And coming over to this girl here, so she actually has, you can see there's a little hair right here. So when I do the deep blemish, I mean, it just goes away. Like, it's gone. And so same thing when I come down here and I do the edge smoothing, look at that, guys. I mean, it just straightened that right out. Again, without changing the natural flow of the uniform, it just adjusted it enough to really make that difference. So guys, this has been something that we are adding into those presets that really, really make a difference, especially, I mean, sometimes you don't really think about it on like, the sports kiddo, right? But I mean, even adding some of this stuff in on the sports kiddo, it just makes a difference. Like his pants here, right? It just kind of took some of the kinks out of his pants. And, when we add that back, it's not a huge difference, but it does flatten that out a little bit. So, but yeah, definitely these cheer kiddos, dance, things like that. These two have been an absolute game changer, and these are still pretty brand new to Evoto. All right, guys, so that kind of knocked out number 2 and number 3 with the deep blemish and the clothing edge. And we even threw a bonus in there with the de-wrinkle. But my 4th tool that we are just absolutely obsessed with is the AI horizontal correction. So I can't tell you how many times our photographers will go out and they'll set up the camera and it's off just a little bit. And guys, going through and manually correcting, those angles and straightening them drives me bonkers. So being able to automatically, so what I'm doing is I'm in the crop and rotate, and we're looking at this AI horizontal correction. So if I hit auto, you can see it's very, very slight. So I actually got pretty close on this one. But if I undo the auto, right, it is adjusting her oh so slightly. And what this does is it just makes all of the images so consistent. So for school photos, it will make sure everybody is exactly how you want it to be, right? So we'll come over to this girl and go into my crop. And again, I'm just hitting this auto. And you can see it really does straighten her out. So this one was a little more turned, or maybe she was just leaning back a little too much, right? So it does automatically straighten her up. Now I have, again, full functionality of this. I can adjust this however I want. So if I don't like the auto, and let's say I want to straighten her up even more, or I want her eyes to be in alignment, right? then I can set that and I can build that into my preset. All right. And so again, just being able to hit that auto, and it's going to auto adjust each individual photo to, straighten those for me is just absolutely incredible. So again, same thing, right? Like here's our baseball kiddo, and it just makes that slight adjustment. So again, it's something so simple, but when you're looking for consistency, you're looking for automation, guys, this makes the absolute world of difference, especially with school photos. Making sure that all of those are straight, it just changes the game. All right, guys. So here is my last tool that I want to talk about today. This is number 5, but honestly, it is probably the tool that gets me the absolute most excited. This is our hot folder tool. So what we did for our business is we built an FTP system. So I can be at a school or at a photo shoot, and I can be, as we're taking the photos, I can actually have them drop into our folder, not physically tethered, but through the internet. The images transfer back to our studio, drop into a folder. And then what Evoto does is it uses a hot folder or a watched folder. It'll pull those images in and automatically start working on them based on the presets that you've created. So that's why I've been talking about these presets, guys. If you are looking to automate your workflow, you have to build out these presets. The last 4 tools work so amazingly well in these presets that it would be selfish of me to keep this from you, right? So let's go ahead and look at these presets. So what I'm going to do, I've got a couple sports kids. Now, obviously, I'm not tethering and shooting into this exactly. So what I did is I took a couple, just random sports photos, and then here's my hot folder. So this is the folder that we're going to watch in Evoto. So just imagine if I was taking photos and they were just automatically dropping into this hot folder. So we gotta pretend here a little bit, but nonetheless. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna show you how we set up this auto import. So the watch folder or hot folder is the very last button. You'll see auto import and export. That's the beauty of this, guys. It'll auto export as well. So much functionality in Evoto that people just aren't aware of. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on this. And as you can see, we can actually select up to 10 folders. So it doesn't have to be just that one folder. So we're going to go in here and we're just going to find our folder, right? And so this is our Evoto hot folder. And then here is my actual hot folder that I want it to watch. I'm going to select choose. And so now it's just waiting. It's literally just waiting for photos to be dropped in here. All right. Now you can select your filter. So if you want it to only look for PNGs or only look for JPEGs, you can. I'm going to have it look for JPEGs because that's what I'm going to drop in. And we're going to go ahead and select our preset. So I do have a sports preset. I've got an outdoor one. So we're just going to go ahead and click on that. And here's our preview image settings. So I want this, if you watched my last video on tethering, I still want this to show the new image. So that way every image that pops in, it's just going to automatically keep triggering those. Now, what I'm going to do to start this magic is start this auto import. All right. And you can see it's just waiting for images to be dropped into that folder. Now, if I wanted to do the auto export, I can. I'm not going to just because I really don't want these to be exported. But again, if that was something I wanted, I can literally just come down here, start my auto export, select my folder, and then my images will be finished. So let's think about this for a second. As we're going to walk through this. So as my team is doing photos, right? Boom, they took a photo. It drops into the hot folder. And as you can see, it's automatically brought into Evoto and it's processing that. So now we just posed. Look at that, guys. It's already done. All right, so now this kiddo's posed. Boom, we take his photo and he drops in, right? And so photographer's posing him and his eyes were closed. We should have retaken that. So we're taking that photo and boom, he drops in there, right? So next kid comes up, he takes a photo and he drops in. Guys, this is working live time as we're on location shooting, right? So then this kid comes and takes his photo and it drops in there. All right, and this kid comes and takes his photo and it drops in there. So again, guys, this is so incredible. So what I want to show you is I took some headshots the other day. So think about this from a school standpoint, right? So, all right, we're doing schools. Now let me go ahead and change this. So I'm going to cancel this auto import. I'm just going to go ahead and delete these out, right? And what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and switch my preset to my schools. Actually, I'm going to do headshot just because I've already got this one built out. So for my headshots, school photos, headshots, right? It's all very, very similar. So now I'm going to start my auto import. All right. So now let's say I'm at a school and I photograph that first kiddo. Oops. I just dropped them all in there. All right. Well, we've got a couple different stations. Let's see how it does. Right. So now it automatically is processing all these photos at the exact same time. So now I'm getting the crop. I'm getting everything. All of this is auto being populated as I'm at the photo shoot. So again, guys, there's so many different ways to be able to automate this stuff. And again, this is where a lot of our magic is happening, is in this hot folder system and being able to automate by dropping these images in. You can do this if you're saving out of Lightroom. You can do this if you're processing certain things in Pixnub. So let's say you're doing your extraction in Pixnub and you want to do all your editing in Evoto, right? So if you're splitting this stuff, if you're using Skylab or another editing service or something like that, but you like Evoto for, you know, some of the more complicated things, the de-wrinkle and so on. So you can build out these presets and basically the programs are going to work with each other without you having to manually do it. So it's just absolutely incredible. But guys, I very much appreciate you coming and checking out my 5 top tools with Evoto. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And yeah, you know where to find me. Talk soon.